The first sign that my sister had betrayed me was the spotlight. Not a metaphorical spotlight either, a real one. Hot, white, and aimed straight at my face while 200 people in cocktail dresses and loosened ties turned to look at me like I was the dessert tray. I had been standing near the back of the ballroom holding a tiny plate with one sad crab cake on it when the auctioneer said, "And now for our surprise bachelor of the evening." My sister Mallory grabbed my elbow. I looked at her. No. She smiled too brightly. For the children. Mallory. For the children with asthma. You put me in a date auction for wheezing kids? She shoved me forward with the strength of a woman who had spent 26 years ignoring my boundaries. That was how I, Ryan Whitaker, 24 years old, part-time guitar teacher, and full-time disappointment to anyone who thought I should have a real plan, ended up walking onto a charity stage while the band played a jazzy version of Can't Take My Eyes Off You. People laughed, not cruelly at first, more like they thought this was charming, a cute little surprise. Mallory's younger brother, the one who fixed sound equipment and forgot to iron his shirts, being auctioned off for a dinner date. Then I saw the printed card in the auctioneer's hand. Ryan is an up-and-coming musician, she read, which was generous, who enjoys Italian food, vintage records, and long walks away from responsibility. The room laughed harder. I turned toward Mallory at table 7. She covered her mouth, but her shoulders shook. I mouthed, "I'm moving out of state." She blew me a kiss. I would have survived it if the bidding had stayed merciful. $20. 50. Maybe one of Mallory's married friends tossing in a pity bid before donating me back to society. Then a woman's voice near the front said, 200. The ballroom shifted. So did I. Because I knew that voice. Sabrina Vale sat at the front table with one arm resting on the back of her chair, looking like she had stepped out of a black and white movie that had decided to learn color just for her. She wore a deep burgundy dress, simple, fitted, not loud. The kind of dress that made every other outfit in the room look like it had tried too hard. She was 25, 1 year older than me, and had been my sister's best friend since college, which meant she had seen me at my absolute least dateable. She had seen me eat cereal from a saucepan during a kitchen renovation. She had seen me carry Mallory's dog in a baby sling because the dog had emotional walking issues. She had once caught me singing into a toilet brush while installing shelves in my sister's apartment. Sabrina should have been immune. Instead, she lifted her bitter paddle like she was challenging the room to make a mistake. The auctioneer blinked. 200 from table 1. Thank you, Sabrina. Someone behind her called 250. A tall guy in a navy suit. Perfect haircut. Perfect teeth. The kind of man who probably had a passport wallet and opinions about wine regions. Sabrina didn't even turn around. 500. My crab cake, still abandoned on a cocktail table somewhere, was having a better night than I was. The auctioneer's eyebrows went up. 500. Wonderful generosity. Mallory stopped laughing. That was when I realized something strange. Sabrina wasn't smiling like this was a joke. She was looking at me. Not at the room, not at Mallory, not at the auctioneer. At me. And there was something in her expression I didn't know what to do with. Amusement, yes. A little mischief. But under it, something steadier. Something almost protective, except not in a sisterly way. No, definitely not that. The guy in the navy suit raised his paddle. 700. A few people clapped. I leaned toward the microphone. Just to clarify, I do not come with dental insurance. The room laughed. Sabrina's mouth curved, but her eyes stayed on mine. 1,000, she said. The laughter thinned into little gasps. My face went hot. I had known Sabrina for 3 years. She was the woman who remembered every birthday, called out Mallory when she was being dramatic, and somehow made sarcasm sound like good manners. She worked as an event coordinator for a nonprofit downtown, which meant she could handle chaos in heels and still remember where everybody left their purse. She also had a habit of looking at people like she saw the draft version underneath the finished product. Around Sabrina, I never knew if I wanted to impress her or hide. The auctioneer fanned herself with the card. $1,000 for dinner with Ryan. I muttered, "That is poor financial planning." The microphone caught it. More laughter. Sabrina finally laughed too, and that laugh hit me harder than the spotlight. Warm, low, familiar. Not the polite laugh she used around donors. The real one. The one I had heard once at Mallory's apartment when I accidentally dropped a lasagna and tried to claim it was deconstructed. Navy suit lifted his paddle again. 1200. Now the room started murmuring. I looked at him more closely. I didn't know him, but Sabrina did. Her jaw tightened for half a second before she smoothed it away. Not fear, not anger exactly, annoyance. The kind with history. My stomach dipped. The auctioneer glanced between them, delighted. 1200. Do I hear 13? Sabrina raised her paddle. 2000. The room went silent. Even the band missed a note. I stared at her. She crossed one leg over the other, calm as Sunday morning, and tilted her head as if to say, "What? You wanted to be affordable?" I should have been embarrassed. I was embarrassed. But something else slid in under it. A ridiculous, dangerous warmth. Because Sabrina Vale, my sister's polished, impossible best friend, had just looked at a room full of people laughing at me and decided I was worth making them shut up. The auctioneer recovered first. $2,000, going once. Navy Suit's smile faded. Mallory's eyes moved from Sabrina to me and her expression changed. Like she had opened a closet expecting coats and found a fire. Going twice. Sabrina lowered her paddle, but her gaze didn't move. Then, just before the final call, the man in the Navy suit stood. 3,000, he said. The ballroom erupted. My mouth went dry. Sabrina's face changed again. The softness disappeared, replaced by a kind of quiet steel I had never seen on her before. I leaned into the microphone, trying to make it funny before it became something else. Folks, I feel legally obligated to mention I drive a dented Honda. Nobody laughed this time. Sabrina slowly stood from her chair. The room watched her. She didn't look at the man bidding against her. She looked at me, and for one sharp second, the noise around us seemed to pull back. Then she lifted her paddle one last time. 5,000, she said, and I'm taking him to dinner tonight. $5,000 made a very specific sound. It sounded like 200 adults forgetting how to breathe at the same time. The auctioneer hit the podium with her little wooden gavel so fast I thought she might sprain something. Sold to Sabrina Vale for $5,000. Applause broke across the ballroom, loud and uneven. People turned in their chairs. Someone whistled. Mallory pressed both hands to her mouth, and for the first time that night, she looked less like a criminal mastermind and more like a woman who had accidentally lit a fuse. I stepped off the stage with my heart punching at my ribs. Sabrina met me near the side curtain. Up close, the confidence she'd worn at the table looked different. Her shoulders were squared, but her fingers tightened around the little white paddle like it had personally offended her. I said, "So, should I be flattered or worried about your budgeting skills?" Her eyes flicked over my face. "Both is probably safest. You paid $5,000 for dinner with a man whose current emergency fund is an old jar labeled AMP Repairs." "I remember that jar," she said. "You spelled emergency wrong." I was under pressure. "You wrote it in your own bedroom." I hated how easily she got me to smile. Behind us, the auction moved on to a weekend lake house package, but people kept looking over, whispering, grinning, making assumptions. And the worst part was, I wasn't sure they were wrong. Sabrina stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Are you okay?" That knocked the joke right out of me. I glanced toward the stage. "I'm fine. Public humiliation is character building. I expect to have a full personality by midnight." "Ryan." Just my name, not scolding, not teasing. I looked at her then. She smelled faintly like vanilla, and something clean, like linen warmed by sunlight. Her hair was pinned back, but one dark strand had slipped near her cheek. I had the absurd urge to tuck it behind her ear, which was exactly the kind of thought a man should not have about his sister's best friend in front of a donor wall covered in corporate logos. "I'm okay," I said softer, mostly confused. Her mouth tilted. "That makes two of us." Before I could ask what she meant, Mallory rushed up, champagne glass in hand, eyes bright with panic and delight. Well, she said, that escalated into a tax deduction. I pointed at her. You are dead to me. You raised $5,000. I personally raised nothing. I stood there like livestock with cheekbones. Sabrina made a small, choking sound. Mallory looked between us again, slower this time. Sabrina, can I talk to you for a second? No, Sabrina said. Mallory blinked. No? I just bought your brother. I'm using my purchase. My soul briefly left my body, hovered near the chandelier, and considered applying for other housing. Mallory's eyebrows climbed. Right, sure, of course. Enjoy your dinner. She walked away backward like she didn't trust us alone with oxygen. The man in the navy suit appeared near the bar, accepting a drink from a server. He glanced over and Sabrina's posture sharpened again. I noticed because I was standing close enough to feel it. Who is he? I asked. Nobody important. That's usually code for somebody important. It's code for somebody persistent. I waited. She sighed. Grant Bell. He's on the donor committee. He likes winning. He also likes making women feel like declining him is a negotiation. The warmth in my chest cooled. Did he think he was bidding on you by bidding on me? Sabrina's eyes met mine. That was answer enough. I set my jaw, then forced myself to unclench it. This was a charity gala, not a parking lot behind a sports bar. Also, Sabrina did not need me pounding my chest like an underfed gorilla. So I asked, what do you want me to do? Her expression changed, softened. That's a better question than most men ask. I'm maturing rapidly under auction conditions. She looked down for half a second, and when she looked back up, there was something unguarded there. I want to leave before someone turns this into a joke I didn't mean to make. That sentence landed carefully. I heard what was under it. You weren't joking? I asked. Sabrina swallowed. The ballroom noise swelled around us. Laughter, silverware, the auctioneer selling off a private cooking lesson like no one's world had tilted. I started bidding because Mallory warned me you might bolt off the stage, she said. Then Grant bid, and I got annoyed. And then? She looked at my tie, which I had borrowed from my roommate and tied badly in a YouTube tutorial haze. Her fingers lifted before she stopped herself. And then you made that dental insurance joke, she said. And you looked embarrassed, but you didn't get mean. You let the room laugh without letting it turn you small. I didn't know what to do with that. Most people saw me as Mallory's younger brother. The charming mess. The musician with uncertain income. The guy people called when a speaker cable snapped, or a bookshelf leaned like it had lost hope. Sabrina was looking at me like I was someone steadier than I felt. So, I said, because my chest had gone too tight, you spent $5,000 because I have excellent humiliation posture. I spent $5,000 because the charity needed it. Ah, and because Grant irritates me. Of course. And, she said, almost too quiet, because I wanted the date. There are moments when your life doesn't explode. It simply shifts half an inch to the left, and suddenly, every familiar thing looks new. Sabrina Vale wanted a date with me, not a favor, not a rescue, not a joke. A date. I glanced at the ballroom doors. Then we should go. Now? You said tonight. A smile touched her mouth. I did say tonight. I hope your expectations are reasonable. $5,000 usually gets people steak. I can offer tacos from the place on Ninth that serves horchata in cups big enough to bathe a squirrel. Her laugh came out surprised and real. You remember I like their horchata? I remember you once threatened Mallory with emotional consequences when she said it was too sweet. That was a serious offense. I took notes. Her eyes held mine a little longer than casual. Then she reached for my tie. I froze. Relax, she said. You look like your neck is being held hostage. Her fingers brushed my collar as she loosened the knot. The contact was simple, practical, and somehow more intimate than anything that had happened under the spotlight. I looked down at her hands because looking at her mouth seemed like a decision I wasn't ready to defend. There, she said, smoothing the tie against my shirt. Now you look less auctioned. What do I look like? She smiled, but it trembled at the edge. Like someone I probably should have asked out without an audience. Before I could answer, Grant Bell's voice cut in behind us. Sabrina, he said smoothly. Surely you're not leaving with him already. I turned. Grant stood a few feet away, drink in hand, smile polished and empty. His gaze flicked over me like I was an unfortunate chair someone had placed in his path. Sabrina stepped beside me, not behind me. I am, she said. Grant laughed once. Come on, the whole room knows what that was. My hand tightened around the edge of the little auction card I hadn't realized I was still holding. Sabrina's shoulder brushed mine. What was it? She asked. Grant's smile sharpened. A very expensive way to make a point. Sabrina looked at him, then at me. And instead of defending herself to him, she slipped her hand into mine. Her palm was warm. Her fingers fit between mine like she had been thinking about it longer than either of us wanted to admit. No, she said. It was a very expensive first date. There are many ways to hold someone's hand. Sabrina didn't grab mine like she needed saving. She took it like she had made a decision and wanted me to feel the shape of it. Grant noticed. So did I. So did half the ballroom, judging by the sudden quiet expanding around us. He gave a short laugh. First date, that's cute. Careful, I said. If you keep complimenting me, I'll start thinking you're jealous. Sabrina's thumb moved once against the side of my hand. Not a warning, approval. Grant's eyes narrowed. You're enjoying this? Honestly, I was hoping to leave for tacos before the rich people started circling. That got a laugh from a woman near the bar who immediately pretended to cough into her napkin. Grant looked at Sabrina. You're making yourself look ridiculous. Her fingers tightened. I felt the flash of old frustration pass through her body, and it did something dangerous to me. Not because she looked weak, she didn't. Sabrina looked like a woman who had been polite for too long, in rooms that mistook politeness for permission. She lifted her chin. No, Grant, I'm making myself unavailable. The words landed clean. He glanced around, aware now that people were watching not as an auction spectacle, but as witnesses. That's not what you said last month, he said. Sabrina went still. I didn't know the story, but I knew the tone. The kind some men use when they want a private rejection to sound like public evidence. I looked at Sabrina, not him. Do you want to go? Her eyes met mine, and the tension in her face changed. Not disappeared. Changed. Yes, she said. So we left. Not dramatically. No speeches, no thrown drinks. Just Sabrina in her burgundy dress and me in my badly tied borrowed tie, walking through the ballroom doors hand in hand while the auctioneer tried to sell a golf weekend over the sound of people whispering. In the lobby, the air felt cooler and less perfumed. Sabrina let out a breath like she'd been holding it since February. I didn't drop her hand. Neither did she. The valet stand was crowded, and beyond the glass doors, downtown glowed in early evening blue. Not late, not stormy, not cinematic in the cheap way. Just a clean spring evening with traffic humming and women in heels laughing near the curb. Sabrina looked down at our hands. You can let go now, she said. I can, I agreed. You're not? I'm waiting for written instructions. Her mouth twitched. You always this obedient? Only with women who spend $5,000 on me. She laughed, then covered her face with her free hand. I cannot believe I did that. I'm trying not to develop an ego. Too late, I can see it inflating. That's just panic? She lowered her hand. Ryan. There it was again. My name said like she was setting something fragile on a table. About Grant, she began. You don't owe me an explanation. I know. She looked through the glass toward the street. But I want to give you one. The valet called for someone's BMW. A couple walked past us arguing cheerfully about whether silent auction baskets counted as gambling. Life kept moving around us, which made the little pocket we stood in feel stranger, more real. Sabrina leaned back against the lobby wall, still holding my hand between us. Last month, Grant asked me to attend a donor dinner with him, she said. I said yes because I thought it was professional. It wasn't. He put his hand on my lower back all night, introduced me like I was his date, and when I corrected him, he acted like I'd humiliated him. I felt my jaw tighten. She noticed. I handled it, she said. I believe you. That seemed to matter to her. I told him no, clearly, privately, more than once. But men like Grant don't always hear no unless another man is standing nearby, which is infuriating and boring and makes me want to bite through glass. That would be bad for your teeth? I have excellent teeth. I noticed. The words came out before I could stop them. Sabrina's eyebrows lifted. I looked away. I mean, in a normal human way. Oh, definitely. That sounded very medical. Dental observation. Charity date comes with complimentary oral assessment? I am a man of many services. She laughed, and just like that, the lobby got warmer. Then her face softened. I didn't bid on you to use you as a shield. I know. I mean, maybe at first a little. She winced. Not use. That sounds awful. Strategically deploy? Thank you. But then, I asked. Her thumb brushed mine again. This time, I knew she meant it. But then I remembered you at Mallory's New Year's party, she said, when everyone got drunk and loud and you sat on the kitchen floor fixing that little boy's toy dinosaur because he was crying. I blinked. The stegosaurus with the broken leg? You made it a splint out of a cocktail straw. He was in medical distress. You were wearing a paper crown that said Midnight Prince. That was part of the treatment. Sabrina smiled, but her eyes were serious. I remember thinking, there's a man who doesn't perform kindness. He just does it when he thinks nobody important is watching. My throat tightened. No one had ever described me that way. Most days I felt like a collection of unfinished things. Unfinished degree, unfinished songs, unfinished ambition according to my father, who believed a man wasn't real until his retirement plan had subcategories. But Sabrina looked at me like the unfinished parts weren't proof of failure, just proof I was still being built. I noticed you too, I said. Her smile faded a little. Not just because you're beautiful, I added, then immediately wished the lobby floor would open politely and accept my resignation from language. Sabrina didn't laugh. She just looked at me. So I kept going because apparently humiliation had made me brave or stupid. I noticed the way you listen. At Mallory's birthday, when her boss kept talking over that intern, you redirected the whole table so the girl could finish her story. And you did it so smoothly the boss thanked you afterward like it was his idea. Sabrina's lips parted. And you always take the burnt corner piece of lasagna because Mallory likes the middle. You think nobody sees that, but I do. For once, Sabrina Vale had no immediate comeback. The valet called, Whitaker? My dented Honda rolled up to the curb under the awning, sounding like a dishwasher full of forks. Sabrina turned toward it. That's the famous vehicle? She asked. Behold, $5,000 of date infrastructure. It has character. It has 3 warning lights and a mint stuck permanently in the cup holder. Even better. We walked outside, still holding hands. I opened the passenger door for her, then had to kick the lower panel twice because it stuck in humid weather. Sabrina watched with delighted horror. Do not judge our process, I said. I'm admiring the craftsmanship. She slid in, gathering her dress carefully, and when I leaned one hand on the roof to make sure she was clear, her face was suddenly inches from mine. The street noise dimmed. Her eyes dropped to my mouth. Mine did the same to hers. For half a second, neither of us moved. Then a voice behind us said, Ryan? Mallory stood on the curb, holding her purse against her chest, looking between my hand on Sabrina's door and Sabrina's face tilted up toward mine. Her expression wasn't teasing now. It was stunned. Then she said the one thing I was not ready to hear. How long has this been going on? Mallory had many facial expressions. I knew the fake innocent one, the furious one, the one she used when a restaurant hostess said the wait was 40 minutes, and the one she wore when our mother asked if she was seeing anyone special. This was new. This was my sister looking at me like I had secretly built a guest house on her emotional property. Sabrina sat in my passenger seat, one hand still resting on the edge of the open door. I stood with my palm on the roof of the Honda, close enough to her that Mallory's question felt less like an accusation and more like evidence. How long has what been going on? I asked. Mallory stared at me. Do not become stupid in front of me, Ryan. I taught you how to use a spoon. Sabrina stepped out of the car before I could answer. Not away from me, beside me. That's not fair, she said gently. Mallory looked at her best friend. You paid $5,000 for my brother. For charity. You held his hand. For balance. You are currently looking at him like he's the last available seat on a lifeboat. Sabrina opened her mouth, then closed it. I probably should have laughed. A month ago, I would have. Turned it into a joke. Made myself harmless, let everyone else relax. But Sabrina's shoulder was near mine and I could still feel the place where her fingers had been between mine. So I said, It started tonight. Mallory's eyes moved to me. At least out loud, I added. That shut all three of us up. A bus sighed at the curb. Somewhere behind us, gala guests spilled onto the sidewalk with gift bags and gossip. My heart was behaving like it had missed several important rehearsals. Sabrina looked at me slowly. Out loud? I turned to her. There are brave moments that feel like charging into battle. This was not one of those. This felt like standing barefoot on a cold floor and deciding not to step back. I noticed you long before tonight, I said. I just didn't let myself name it. Mallory made a small sound. Ryan. I held up a hand, still looking at Sabrina. Not because you're Mallory's friend like that makes you off-limits property. Because I didn't want to make your life awkward. Or Mallory's. Or mine, honestly. I already knew what people thought when they saw us in the same room. Sabrina's voice softened. What did they think? That you were the woman with a real career and a calendar app that probably sends polite threats. And I was the guy who owns 2 black shirts and considers one of them formal. Her eyes glistened, but her mouth tilted. 3. What? You own 3 black shirts. One has a bleach mark shaped like Oregon. I laughed once, helplessly. Mallory looked between us, and something in her face gave way. Not approval yet, more like fear showing its real name. She's my best friend, she said quietly. I know, I said, and you're my little brother. I'm aware. You mention it in public whenever you want a discount. I don't want either of you hurt. Sabrina reached for Mallory's hand. Mal? Mallory's chin trembled, which was rare and terrifying. I did the auction because I thought it would be funny, because Ryan would make jokes, everyone would clap, and maybe some harmless woman would bid on him. I didn't know. She looked at Sabrina. I didn't know you were sitting there with all that in your face. Sabrina squeezed her hand. I didn't either. That hit me harder than any confession could have. Because it was true. The night had pulled something out of us before we had language ready. Mallory looked at me. If this becomes a mess, it won't be because I treated her carelessly, I said. Sabrina turned her head toward me. I met Mallory's eyes. I can't promise it won't be complicated. I can promise I won't make her carry the awkwardness alone. Mallory studied me for a long second. Then she exhaled. That was annoyingly mature. I've been saving it. For 24 years? Some things need time. Sabrina laughed softly. Mallory wiped under one eye and pointed at both of us. Fine, go to dinner. But if either of you makes Thanksgiving weird, I'm seating you at opposite ends of the table and communicating through bread rolls. Understood, I said. Mallory hugged Sabrina first. Hard. Then she hugged me, muttering into my shoulder, Do not be an idiot. I will be a very careful idiot. When she finally walked back toward the hotel entrance, Sabrina and I stood by the Honda in the blue evening light, the air full of car exhaust, perfume, and the strange quiet that follows permission. I opened the passenger door again. Sabrina didn't get in. What? I asked. She folded her arms. You noticed me long before tonight? I leaned against the car. That is what the transcript will show. And you said nothing? You were my sister's best friend. I'm also a person with a phone number. That felt like privileged information. She stepped closer, eyes narrowing with mock offense. Ryan Whitaker, did you spend 3 years acting mildly inconvenient around me because you were attracted to me? Mildly inconvenient? You once knocked over a lamp after I complimented your song. That lamp was unstable. It was mounted to the wall. I looked at the sidewalk. Fine, I may have lost control of my elbows. Her smile softened into something that made my chest ache. I liked that song, she said. The one about the laundromat. You remember that? You sang it like you were joking, but the chorus was sad. No one remembered the chorus. No one even knew there was a chorus. I stared at her, and for once I didn't feel unfinished. I felt seen in a way that made hiding seem rude. I wrote it after my dad told me music was a hobby for men with trust funds, I said. Her face changed. Ryan. He's not a villain. He just worries in the shape of criticism. I shrugged. After a while, I started making jokes before anyone else could. Sabrina stepped close enough that the skirt of her dress brushed my leg. You don't have to do that with me, she said. The sentence was simple. No dramatic music, no grand vow. It still took me apart. I looked at her mouth, then back to her eyes. If I kiss you, this stops being a charity event. It stopped being a charity event when I spent $5,000 to beat Grant Bell and then admitted I wanted tacos. Romantic history will remember that? Let it. So I kissed her. Not in the desperate way people kiss when they're trying to prove a point to someone watching. Mallory was gone. Grant was inside. The city didn't care. It was just Sabrina's hand sliding up to my collar, my fingers finding her waist with a care that surprised even me, and her breath catching like she had expected the kiss and still wasn't prepared for it. She tasted faintly sweet. Maybe from champagne, maybe from the smile she couldn't quite hold back. When we parted, she stayed close. So, she whispered, tacos? I rested my forehead lightly against hers. Absolutely. But I should warn you, the date portion of tonight has a strict no refund policy. I waived my refund rights at $5,000. We were both smiling when she finally got into the car. I closed her door, walked around to the driver's side, and sat behind the wheel feeling like I had somehow stumbled into the right life by accident. Sabrina buckled her seatbelt and glanced at the dashboard. Which warning light is the romantic one? The tire pressure, very sensual. She laughed, then reached across the console and took my hand again. I started the engine, but before I could pull away from the curb, Sabrina looked down at our joined hands and said, Ryan, after tonight, I don't want to pretend this was just one date. Sabrina said it softly, but it filled the car. After tonight, I don't want to pretend this was just one date. My hand was still in hers, resting between the gear shift and a cup holder with one fossilized mint inside it. Outside, a valet waved another car forward. Behind us, the charity gala kept glowing through the hotel windows like a life we had already stepped out of. I looked at her. Good. Her eyebrows lifted. Good? I was trying to figure out how to say that without sounding like a man who got kissed once and immediately started naming our future dog. She smiled. You named it already, didn't you? Not officially. Ryan. Pickle. She stared at me. I'm workshopping. That dog is never happening. See? Look at us, communicating, building something healthy. She laughed, and the sound settled my nerves better than any grand speech could have. Then her fingers tightened around mine. I mean it, she said. I don't want to sneak around Mallory. I don't want to turn this into some dramatic secret. But I also don't want to walk away because it might be complicated. I nodded. Then we don't walk away. That simple? No, but maybe simple enough to start. So we started with tacos. Not candlelight. Not steak. Not the kind of dinner people probably imagined when $5,000 hit a charity ledger. We sat at a small metal table outside the place on Ninth. Sabrina still in that burgundy dress, me still in my borrowed tie, both of us overdressed enough that a teenager at the next table asked if we had come from prom. Sabrina said, "He's my auction prize." The kid said, "That's weird." I said, "Correct." We ate tacos that dripped down our wrists, and Sabrina drank horchata like she had earned it in battle. We talked about Grant only long enough for her to say she was sending a clear professional email the next morning, copying the donor committee chair, and then never giving him another private conversation. Then we talked about everything else. Her job, my music students, the fact that she secretly hated centerpieces with feathers because they looked like expensive bird crimes, the way I still kept a shoebox full of half-written songs because finishing them meant finding out whether they were good. At one point, she reached across the table and wiped salsa from the corner of my mouth with her thumb. I forgot every language I knew. She smiled like she noticed. The next week was strange in the best way. Mallory tried to act normal and failed with Olympic commitment. She invited us both over for dinner, then opened the door, saw my hand on Sabrina's lower back, and whispered, "I'm being mature," before walking directly into her coat closet. But she came around, not instantly. Not because one kiss made everyone comfortable. She came around because Sabrina and I didn't make her guess. We told her when we were going out. We didn't use her as a messenger. We didn't turn her friendship with Sabrina into a hallway between us. One Sunday afternoon, Mallory found us in her kitchen, Sabrina reading donor notes at the island, while I restrung my niece's tiny pink guitar. Sabrina glanced up and said, "He's focused. It's unsettling." Mallory watched us for a second, then smiled despite herself. "You two are extremely annoying," she said. Sabrina pointed at me. "He started it. I was auctioned against my will. You enjoyed the ending." I looked at her over the guitar. "I did." Sabrina's face softened in a way that made Mallory groan. "Oh, no," my sister said. "You're doing the look." "What look?" I asked. "The look people do right before they ruin brunch for everyone." Sabrina laughed, and I kissed her cheek just to prove Mallory right. There were harder moments, too. My father heard about the auction from Mallory because of course he did, and asked me if being sold for charity counted as employment. I almost made the usual joke. Sabrina was beside me on my apartment couch, her bare feet tucked under her, reviewing a seating chart for an event. She looked over, not interfering, just there. So I told my father the truth. "I'm teaching, I'm playing weekend gigs, I'm figuring it out, and I need you to stop making my life sound like a warning label." Silence. Then, awkwardly, he said, "Your mother liked the video of you on stage." Of course there was a video, but it was a start. 3 months later, Sabrina came to one of my shows at a small wine bar with brick walls and terrible acoustics. I played the laundromat song, the whole thing. When I got to the sad chorus, she had remembered my voice shook once. Then I saw her near the back, standing beside Mallory, both hands wrapped around a glass she had forgotten to drink from. Sabrina mouthed, "Finish it." So I did. Afterwards, she met me near the alley door where the band loaded equipment. She didn't say anything clever. She just wrapped her arms around my neck and kissed me like she had been waiting through every unfinished song I'd ever abandoned. 6 months after the auction, the charity held a smaller donor event in a rooftop garden downtown. Sabrina coordinated it, calm and radiant in a soft blue dress, headset tucked behind one ear, clipboard in hand like a weapon. I was there as the entertainment this time, not the merchandise. Mallory introduced me to people as my brother, the musician, without adding a joke after it. That mattered more than I expected. Near the end of the night, Sabrina found me by the railing, city lights coming on below us. "We raised more than last year," she said. "Was I auctioned again?" "No, your market value remains emotionally protected." "Thank you." She leaned into my side and I slipped my arm around her waist. We stood there with the noise behind us, not hiding, not performing. A year after that first ridiculous night, Sabrina and I moved into a small apartment with crooked floors, good afternoon light, and absolutely no dog named Pickle. She insisted on that last part. We did, however, adopt a cat from a shelter event she organized. The cat had one torn ear, no respect for personal space, and a habit of sleeping inside my empty guitar case. Sabrina named him Gavel. Mallory said it was deeply obnoxious and unfortunately perfect. On the second anniversary of the auction, I took Sabrina back to the taco place on Ninth. I wore the same borrowed tie, though it was mine by then because my roommate had given up asking for it back. Sabrina wore jeans and a cream sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. We sat at the same outdoor table and I slid a small velvet box across the metal surface between the salsa bottles. She looked at it, then at me. Ryan, she whispered. I considered putting it inside a taco, but I'm told romance has limits. Her eyes filled. I opened the box. Sabrina Vale, you once paid $5,000 to save me from a joke, then somehow convinced me I was worth taking seriously. I don't want to be anyone's auction prize ever again, but I would very much like to be your husband. She laughed and cried at the same time, which I considered a yes even before she said it. Then she said it. Mallory had been hiding behind a parked food delivery van with her phone out, sobbing so loudly that a stranger offered her a napkin. We got married the following spring in a garden behind the community arts center where I taught music on Saturdays. Nothing enormous, nothing polished to death. Just family, friends, tacos at the reception because Sabrina insisted, and my father quietly telling me he was proud of me while pretending to examine a string quartet program. Near the end of the night, Sabrina pulled me onto the little dance floor under strands of warm lights. No bidding, she said. No spotlight, I said. No grant. No dented Honda either. She looked toward the parking lot where our slightly less dented car waited with tin cans tied to the bumper by Mallory. We've grown. I held her close, her cheek against my shoulder, her ring warm against the back of my neck. And I thought about that first moment on stage, when I believed the whole room was laughing at me. I hadn't known Sabrina was about to stand up, raise her paddle, and change the meaning of the joke. Sometimes love doesn't arrive quietly. Sometimes it outbids the room. What would you have done if your own sister put you in a charity date auction as a joke and the one person you secretly noticed wouldn't stop bidding? And have you ever had someone stand up for you in public in a way that changed how you saw them forever? Tell me your story in the comments. And for those who'd like to be a little closer to us, we've opened memberships, where you'll get shorter exclusive stories every week with no ads. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.